Hello everyone, I am thrilled to see you all again in this new video. Today, the objective is to provide a description of another organization that certain IT service providers implement to address the primarily recurring requirements of client organizations. This is the Service Center. In my previous video, I described the Competence Center as an organization of the service provider that provides its clients with a certain number of consultants, whether shared or not, who have skills in one or more areas of activity and technologies. The billing of a competency center is frequently based on the time expended by consultants and thus on the rates charged per day. Concerning the service center, the provider will not directly offer consultants, but will charge based on the services that have been provided. The services will be predefined in a service catalog, and the work units will be determined by the specified result obligation mentioned in the previous videos. In order to facilitate understanding, I will structure the description of this concept into 3 parts, which will be 3 short videos. In this first part, I will illustrate what a service center is by using the example of a gardening service, and I will highlight the various possible modes of intervention related to this service. This will also enable us to briefly go over certain concepts that were covered in the previous videos. In the second part, I will expand upon this illustration to include a simple and well-known computer service. IT support or help desk. In the third part, I will provide you with a more intricate example of a service center, specifically focusing on the maintenance and support of third-party applications for a business intelligence or decision-making solution within a corporate environment. If we revisit our gardening service as a component of a competence center, you will bring in a team of gardeners utilizing the same material that could potentially be shared with your different neighbors in the vicinity. You will be charged for this service based on the amount of time spent, in accordance with the varying hourly rates of the participants. You also have the choice to request a flat rate service in the mode of delegation of responsibility. In this scenario, you'll pay a fixed amount regardless of the time spent by the jargon team, if they've completed on time and provided satisfactory service. To ensure objectivity, defining satisfactory and translating it into performance indicators would be necessary. Finally, you might be in a situation where activities regularly vary, whether in volume, level of difficulty, or type of service. In this case, instead of having long discussions every time to define a package or paying for the total time spent, over which you have very little control, you have another option, which is to set up a service contract. To do this, it is necessary to define in advance and contractually all the different gardening activities, also called work units, their level of complexity, and the corresponding lump sum unit prices. Let's consider the following non-exhaustive activities: hedge trimming, lawn mowing, weeding, tree felling, and pruning. It will be enough to know the volume of each activity carried out or to be carried out by level of complexity in order to obtain the overall amount of each intervention. Let's take an example of an annual gardening contract and define 3 levels of complexity based on the criterion of the difficulty of accessing green spaces. To simplify the illustration, it is assumed that the definition of these levels of complexity is the same for all activities. Accessing the intervention area is simple, with no difficulty. Accessing the intervention area is medium, with average difficulty. The area has a slope ranging from 5 to 10% and some holes. Complex, strong difficulty accessing the intervention area. The area has a slope greater than 10% with regular holes throughout its surface. The pricing grid would be described as shown on the screen. The first column lists all work units and their units of measurement. The linear meter of hedge size, the square meter of lawn tomb, the square meter of weeding, cutting and pruning of trees. This list of activities may evolve during the contractual period and be subject to a tariff update and an amendment, but it is preferable to define a maximum number of activities before signing the contract to benefit from the competitive context of this initiative in terms of negotiation. The 3 columns that follow represent the indicative load required to carry out each activity by level of complexity: simple, medium, complex. Then come the 3 columns that will represent the lump sum unit prices by type of activity and by level of complexity. The final 3 columns indicate the volume requirements for each activity that you have to consider. With each intervention, only these data will change and will have an impact on the overall price of the service. Suppose you have a garden of 5,000 meters, 1,000 meters of hedge, about 30 trees and several paths with a total area of 400 meters covered in weeds. You need a monthly meeting from May to October, and it's highly likely that each intervention, activities, and overall price will vary for every intervention. For the initial intervention, assume you request your provider to perform full garden maintenance, cutting down 10 sick trees and pruning the others, considering access difficulties and complexity levels. The hedge trimming price will be 1.7 euro per unit x 500 meters of hedges in a simple intervention zone, plus 2 euro x 300 meters of hedges in a medium difficulty intervention zone, plus 2.4 euro x 200 meters of hedges in a high difficulty intervention zone, totaling 1930 euro, or 30 euro for hedge trimming. The same calculation method is applied to each of the other activities: lawn mowing, weeding, lizard cutting, and vine pruning. The total price of the overall service will therefore be the sum of the amounts of the different activities, which is 5,228 euros. Unit prices of activities defined based on volumes, expertise, importance of participants, costs including constraints and risks, not to mention, at a minimum, the depreciation of equipment and tools necessary for the provision of various services. It is very likely that the gardening team and the service provider are shared among multiple clients, enabling optimization of pricing conditions and utilization of technological monitoring. If you add to this organization, on a larger scale, governance activities including performance indicator management, or even more, process industrialization such as the implementation of best methods, expertise matrices, guaranteed service levels, then you are setting up a real service center. In the next 2 videos, I will come back to our information system context with 2 illustrations: the help desk and the maintenance of a decision-making tool. I will also describe the main advantages of the service center, whether for client organizations or providers, the prerequisites necessary for its implementation, as well as the obstacles often encountered. And this, without forgetting to share with you some notions of planning. I'm done with this first simplified illustration of a service center. Thank you for listening, and see you soon on my next videos.